All right, folks. So Trump is out there saying absolutely insane things again. Before I show it to you and a couple of other pieces of evidence to make a broader claim that I'm making, let me start out with something that I think everybody needs to understand. And this is partly something I think even my side of the aisle is in a little bit of denial about, which is there are portions of the right. Now, it is clearly not the entire right. That's not the point that I'm making, but there are significant portions of the right that simply do not believe that the left is entitled to govern. This is true even in cases where they win elections. This is true, especially in cases, in fact, where they win elections. I mean, you can see this in any number of ways. January 6th by itself was this. There was this election, Biden won it. Trump had any number of different opportunities through, dozens of court cases to prove that there was some kind of voting irregularity or you name it, right? And he could not do it. And of course, Fox News was sued to the hilt by Dominion Voting, them and Newsmax, right? I mean, every opportunity that existed to prove the merit of these claims, they failed utterly and consistently every time because, of course, they did. It was just a nonsense made up claim because the guy didn't want to give up power. But of course, you can see it more than that. This fevered attempt at gerrymandering, which is now ratcheting up like a gerrymandering arms race on both sides. But of course, like, why do they want to do it? In part because they just simply don't believe in the right of the left to ever be able to govern. This is true in the case of North Carolina, where the state legislature hampered the incoming governor from being able to, and not just him, but other members of the incoming leadership from being able to use previous facets of and previous powers that they had within the office to affect change. They hobbled significant portions of that. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, this is something that is so easy to see. It happens all the time. And part of what is, I think, powering that is, in general, that there is, as I stated, a belief that the left should not be able to govern. Or that if they are allowed to govern, it should be constrained. I mean, look at what they're doing here in D.C., right? They don't like that the voters here, well over 90%, voted against the incumbent. So what are they going to do? They're going to gin up a fake, totally phony crime emergency, right? To then take over the federal, or I should say, to federalize the police force, to send in the National Guard, you name it, right? Because they fundamentally, like, whenever you're faced with a situation where it's like, why isn't there full democratic rights of the people who live here, right? We don't have a senator. We have one congressman. They cannot vote on the floor. They can only vote in committee. They can only introduce bills in committee. These are the only powers that they have. Rather than, we do have 3 electoral votes, but rather than ever looking at that and saying, wow, we should really empower these people with the same democratic norms and not merely values, but powers that we enabled everyone else who lives in every other place in this country, I guess Puerto Rico notwithstanding, but it's the same kind of situation there. Rather than scale out democracy, they want to just keep it as is, and it's all punitive, right? It's just punitive in place. So like any number of different ways you can see this, but it's a pretty common thread when you really begin to notice it. And you can see it in smaller elections and smaller places and geographic territories. But the through line is pretty consistent, that when people vote for the left, there has to be some kind of irregularity about it. Even if they win, there has to be ways to kind of hamper them. And that to the extent that any kind of majority from the right can be either elected or maintained, there can be any number of extra legal and or dubious, unethical steps that can be taken in order to preserve that majority, which is exactly what they're trying to do. There's just no way to look at the polling around Trump, which now there's a Gallup poll that came out, I think either today or yesterday, that shows him underwater on essentially every issue, underwater with Gen Z males, underwater with Latinos. I mean, massive drop off. And these are including things like signature issues, immigration, the economy, you name it. He's just like consistently underwater. These people are not governing in a way where they expect to have to face voters and their wrath if they do a poor job in the next set of elections. They're not governing this way. I mean, they're just ripping communities apart. These tariffs are, I mean, it's still something to be seen about what happens with them, but some of the early results are not exactly, fostering a great degree of confidence. Again, the markets haven't quite bared this out yet. We shall see. But like, my point I would ask is, like, what have they done to build since they've gotten here. Everything has been about tearing the existing order apart. They have done everything possible to, in virtually every single way, to just simply tear things down, tear things apart. Anyway, the point I wanted to make is Trump made a statement yesterday, and a lot of statements Trump makes are just, the ramblings of a man who is not in full control of his cognitive faculties and is otherwise empowered to simply get away with saying the most insane shit imaginable. I want you to watch this, and then you might be tempted to be like, well, what's really the significance of this? It doesn't sound great, but what's the significance? But then when you marry this with other forms of like either data or evidence, it becomes a little bit more ominous.
But then he goes on television and says, oh, Trump is a dictator. He's a dictator. And a lot of people are here. So the line is that I'm a dictator, but I stop crime. So a lot of people say, if that's the case, I'd rather have a dictator. But I'm not a dictator. I just know how to stop crime.
Now, his supporters might point out, yeah, he says he doesn't like a dictator. He's not a dictator, right? But my point is that the thought that you can hear him say this and then conclude there's nothing to worry about is only something that you can do if you're powered by the brain of a toddler, right? Because the rest of us know that when he leaks stuff like this, more often than not, there tends to be something that kind of comes behind it. And the scary reality is, yes, the polling from certainly the left in America and even some of the sort of the center indicates great dissatisfaction. But then when you start polling the right, you get a very different answer. Check out this couple from 2024 when asked about Trump being a dictator. See what they say.
Would you rather have 4 years of Donald Trump as a dictator or 4 years of President Biden reelected? You don't have to like the words that come out of the man's mouth, but sometimes in life we all
don't worry, I don't
need a good paddling from the principal to set our life on the right track. And this
dog, what the fuck does that even mean? We need a paddling? Like the only analogy this guy can make is corporal punishment, which I'm not even sure is allowed in public school anymore. I mean, maybe in private schools. Corporal punishment at the education level for like spitballing. Is that what you imagine the rest of the world and or your political adversaries have been doing all this time?
This country does need a little bit of that.
Holy fuck.
We need a little paddling. I mean, I was a problem child growing up, and it took a good leadership to set me straight.
Yeah, I believe that you were an enormous fuck up. That is not hard to believe.
So I think our country does need some of that. So I hands down believe people wanted it 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So
yeah, we didn't want a paddling. I can assure you that we did not want corporal punishment to be lashed out upon us. What we want are leaders who can build things. What we want are leaders who can work on cost of living crises or expand affordable access to healthcare or work on infrastructure projects in the United States or meaningfully combat homelessness or make sure that our education standards have been improved and can keep pace with the rest of the world. I'm not asking for Duterte in American clothing to wreak havoc with the police state on ordinary and frankly, more importantly, disadvantaged people, you fucking idiot.
But they didn't vote that way, right? I don't know about that.
Yeah, I bet you don't, you fucking idiot.
You think it was a stolen election? Without a doubt.
The other day, Donald Trump said on his first day he's going to be a dictator for a day.
I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Would you rather have Donald Trump as a dictator for 4 years or reelect Joe Biden for 4 years?
I would rather have Donald Trump. I'd like to see the repeal the Roosevelt law so that he can be a president for a lot more than 4 years. But this country needs a dictator. I hate to say that, but it's the truth.
I got to tell you, I don't think he hates to say that at all. I don't think he says that with any trepidation. These people fundamentally do not believe in power sharing, and they do not believe in the constitutional order. They do not, except to the extent that it benefits their existing worldview, like the ability to have firearms through the Second Amendment. Yes, like that part, they'll give some nominal, yes, thank you. And to the extent that the First Amendment protects the things that they want to say, which I'm guessing are largely slurs against gay people. But or other racial minorities, yes, in that particular sense, they like the constitutional order. But the broader constitutional order and the limits that it puts on the presidency, the power sharing that it requires and frankly demands, and although this ability to merit that out in real time seems to be highly questionable, but the constraints put on the powers of government, the rights afforded to the citizenry relative to the powers of the government, these people simply do not believe in this. They do not believe in this. And this is why when you get Democratic leaders out there like Hakeem Jeffries, who is as worthless and perfunctory a leader as it possibly gets, these are not people who operate with this understanding in mind. They do not see this threat. They do not recognize it for what it is. And they do not act with the requisite urgency and frankly forcefulness that is required. And this is why I'm so alarmed by it. This is who we are up against, not against in totality, but this is part of what is undergirding this movement. It is a recognition on their part, not ours, that the constitutional order simply does not work for the imposition of their worldview. So fuck the constitutional order.
Donald Trump said in a speech that on day one, for a day, he would be a dictator. What do you think of that?
No idea. I don't know.
Would you rather have 4 years of Donald Trump as a dictator or 4 years of Joe Biden as a president,
Trump,
as a dictator?
maybe.
Yeah. I mean, she's a
Would you rather
low-information
have
idiot.
4 years of Donald Trump as a dictator or 4 years of Joe Biden as a president,
Donald Trump all the way.
even as a dictator?
Yes, yes,
Even coming out of Slovakia?
yes, yes.
Would you rather have 4 years of Donald Trump as a dictator or 4 years of Joe Biden as a president?
No, we have a dictator currently, so
Yeah, we do.
Oh, that is all. We have a dictator currently. This is, of course, when Biden was in office. The same people that fly the "Don't Tread on Me" flags, these are going to be the guys and the ladies rolling out the red carpet for government tyranny. Mark my words. These people can't recognize basic facts on the ground. They cannot recognize basic political movements. They cannot recognize actual political threats if their lives depended on it. The people who are saying hands off, like Charleston Heston, through my cold dead hands, you're going to get these firearms. And the people who hang the "Don't Tread on Me" yellow flag on there. You see a lot of them, by the way, in the state of Virginia when I have to go through there. These are the people that are going to roll the red carpet out for tyranny because they are against tyranny such that they perceive it as something against their political interests, but they're all in favor of it, which by the way is a totally like nonsensical observation, but then they're absolutely in favor of it if it means the persecution of their political adversaries. And I realize this is a hypothetical thing, like, hey, it would end in 4 years, and who's to say a dictatorship would end in 4 years? But the fact that he wouldn't give it any oxygen is the height of absurdity. Now, what I'm about to show you is also not new polling data. I believe most of it is from this year. I think a couple of this is from last year, relatively recent polling data from Republicans, where when you actually look at that in conjunction with anecdotally what I've just shown you, and then in conjunction with Trump's statements, you would hope that Trump doesn't want to become a dictator because the people who support him seem to have real "we love dictator" tendencies. Now, this is from a CNN article that came out today, but you can verify the links and what they're saying and the polls which they're linking to. You can verify those for yourselves. Quote, a Pew Research Center poll early this year showed 59% of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents agreed that many of the country's problems could be better solved if Donald Trump didn't have to worry so much about Congress and the courts. Yeah, I bet they do. That's a larger number than two polls. This is two different ones that asked a similar question, and these two are not Pew Research ones, last year, but all showed a majority of Republicans endorsing this sentiment. The number in the Pew poll spiked to 78% among Republicans who identify with the GOP strongly. Saying that Trump should face fewer hurdles, of course, isn't the same as saying he should be a dictator. However, when you dig a little deeper, you find a pretty significant number of Republicans endorsing that kind of power, as many as 3 and 4. How about this? And again, this comes to us from, again, different polls conducted throughout the year. 44% of Republicans said the courts shouldn't be allowed to review Trump's policies. This is from a CBS News YouGov poll. 28% of Republicans said a president should be able to ignore Congress or the Supreme Court when those institutions, quote, hold our country back, whatever that means. This came to us from Axios and a PRRI poll. 36% of Republicans said they wouldn't be at all bothered if Trump were to, quote, suspend some laws and constitutional provisions to go after political enemies. This is what I mean when I say they do not believe in the political order. A Monmouth University poll in December showed just 23% said they would be bothered a lot by this. The rest were in the middle. And then 28% of Republicans said the country needed a president who was willing to break some rules and laws to set things right, per a late 2023 Fox News poll. They don't believe in constitutional order, and they do not believe the left should be allowed to govern, at least not fully or without significant restrictions. Anytime you see them doing what they're doing in DC or what they want to do in Chicago or what they want to do in LA, of course, all blue cities, I wonder what's up with that. What you are witnessing and the gerrymandering efforts and everything is this is the true reveal of what they think of their political adversaries. If they can harass, police, detain, arrest, jail, gerrymander, whatever it takes to undermine their ability to have power, that's what they have to do. I'm going to be interviewing political candidates on this channel and on my Substack in the coming weeks and months, and who knows how much longer I'll be doing this, but certainly for the foreseeable future. And I'm going to ask every single one of them a very basic question. Not, are you willing to commit crimes? No one's asking for that. We're not out there for that. That's absurd. However, in the defense of what is right and in the defense of laws and in the defense of constitutional order, are you willing to be jailed by the Trump administration? Because if the answer is no, get to stepping. We don't want you. This is an emergency. This is the erosion of a basic set of shared beliefs about how this whole game should be played, about what the referee's job is, about what we're all set up to do. And if they're not prepared to protect our rights as we are trying to protect theirs, well, buddy, we need some leaders who can change the game for us to make sure that we are not up against these kinds of threats by Democrats simply unwilling to recognize the threat that is in front of their face. Either do something about this and recognize what it is, or get to stepping immediately.